and absence of our dear president at the time, Alhaji Musa Yar'Adua. May God bless his soul, a great man. Yes. But the Constitution had been breached, and the templates for orderly transmission of power had not been adhered to for a number of reasons. And the country was sliding into anarchy and chaos, given the Nigerian penchant for sentiments and divisions. At that time, I was in the House of Reps. Abanas, your national president, was my colleague. It took men of courage to come together at the time to say the right thing has to be done. And that was the tradition we had in the National Assembly at the time. Our colleagues were doing theirs, led by Senator Bala Mohammed, and we in the House of Reps. He was our chairman. Please, a special round of applause for him. And we put together the Nigeria First Forum. So our quest for a democratic Nigeria, an inclusive Nigeria, Nigeria under the rule of law is not something that started now. Way back. And in that atmosphere of distrust and sentiments and recriminations, in that midst of that crisis, I also got to see what is possible about Nigeria. And in fact, that from all parts of Nigeria, you have people, good people, deeply democratic, who love Nigeria dearly, from all parts of this country. I saw it. And that's why we never lost faith. And I must tell you, even today, in the midst of our challenges, we should not lose faith in our country. Abba Anas Adamu from Jigawa, when we put the group together, well, he said I was the leader, but he was the chairman. Himself, and after those events, himself and the Honorable Dr. Sani Abdu from Bauchi State. You see, this is why I don't believe. I will never lose faith in this country. Always continue to believe in it. In every state, in every local government, in every community, you have people, good people, who will say no when things are wrong and say no is the right answer. You find them if you look carefully. They were the people. The motion to make President Jonathan, then Vice President, was moved by Honorable Dr. Sani Abdu from Bauchi State. Then even from an opposition party. And then the group was led, and that motion was seconded by my brother, Right Honorable Abba Anas Adamu. And since after that time, I called all of them, not just my friends and colleagues, and said they are my brothers. And in the case of Abba Anas Adamu, I say he's my in-law. I will have a wife waiting for him from Bayelsa State. So, my dear friends, that's a celebration of the uniqueness of our nation. The diversity of our nation should not be an impediment to our greatness. No, it's a stepping stone. We are one of the greatest nations. And it's not for nothing that our founding fathers adopted this national anthem that has the old one we used to sing, which has now become the new one. When it says, though tribes and tongues may differ, one brotherhood. And it concludes with what is clearly the best national prayer we have not adopted yet. The third stanza, the last stanza. When it says, "O God of all creation, help us to build a nation where what? No man is oppressed. And so, with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed." Great hopes during the founding of our country. We can have conversations and debates and disagreements about whether those lofty ideals have been met. But that's a conversation for another day. But we've made some progress. So, Mr. Chairman, Abba Nasadamu, thank you for your continuous belief in our country and for doing what you are doing. I recognize all members of your team, all the executive members, all the chapter chairmen of the alumni, the various polytechnics. When you were all being called, I was keenly watching and observing. And this truly is a meeting of those of you who have passed through the polytechnic system in this country, and it's very encouraging. And to all other members of the high table, in no particular order, and all of you, my brothers and sisters, all of you who have found time, members of FONPA, and others who have found time to be here. I want to join the chairman and his team in welcoming all of you, particularly the chairman of this occasion and the royal father, our father, my Lord Justice Bagge, Emir of Lafia, and all of you for finding time to be here. But Mr. Chairman, I want to also thank you on behalf of myself and my family for you and your association for extending this invitation to me to give me an opportunity to share, not to give a lecture, as you read out in your program. Because as you know, unlike you people, I'm not a lecturer, unlike the chairman. And from a summary of my biography, you have also noted that I've been a servant of the law all through. Police officer at 19, and all the way to becoming a lawyer and becoming Attorney General of my state, and thereafter becoming a two-term member of the House of Representatives, and becoming a governor, two-term governor of my state, actually the first to complete 2 terms. And now two-term elected senator of my district. So it's either I've been an enforcer of the law in my younger days in the police, who later on became a lawmaker with the national chairman as my colleague. And then I went back to administer the law. And then came back to the Senate where, again, I'm making laws. In none of these, I've not taught, I've not lectured. Even though lecturing was one of the things, as a young man, I desired to do. I thought I would end up as a senior advocate and a professor of law. But here am I. But that's a story for another day. So I've come here just to share some thoughts with you, all of you, and not to give a lecture, and which again, not being a lecturer, I'm not here with any lecture notes or with any prepared speech. I'm here to share thoughts, not on things that you don't know, but just to share thoughts on common themes and ideas that we all have. And especially those of you who are lecturers, who are experts in this area. You have had these ideas far more. You are more experts in this field than I am. But when you talk about education, and particularly the role of technical, vocational education, education is a matter that affects all of us, and which is where I would like to start. And I want to start also by thanking you, Mr. Chairman, and all of you in FOMPA for putting this body together. So that by so doing, you have a platform by which you share ideas on your experiences, and then be in a position to influence what goes on and to engage those that matter. I always tell people, if you want to assess the performance of a government, if you want to assess any president or governor or chairman, or you want to assess how ready a society, a nation is, you look at what they do, the investments they make in education. And for 8 years as governor, I was saying the same thing over and over again. That look, it's good to build roads, and I built a lot of roads. It's good to build bridges, and we built a lot of bridges. In fact, we can't stop building bridges. And guess what? Anybody who sits in an executive position and there's money, one of the easiest things you do is to award a contract for building of roads and bridges, isn't it? Yes. But if you want to know, if you want to assess the depth of understanding of a leader, president, governor, or anybody, and the understanding of that person in terms of development, both immediate, medium term, and especially long term, you ask, what is the person doing or proposing to do in education? Because a society that wants to be at peace with itself, the leadership of that society must envision it and create and make the investments in education. Any society that is beleaguered, as we are currently, and as we have been for some time, insecurity, crisis, banditry, militancy, all of this, my dear friends, when you trace it, yes, people can bring in sentiments, religion, ethnicity. No. The main cause, when you trace it correctly, the main cause is insufficient investment in education. Insufficient investment in education. And so, when you say you want a society that will be peaceful, you've got to invest in the schools that will teach those values. I know parents have their roles to play. Traditional systems and all of us in our societies have a role to play. But the major person, the major institution, the major people to push this agenda, the state levels is the governors. At the national level, the president. And this is why in our constitution, understandably so, the subject matter of education is in the concurrent list. It's in the concurrent list. State governments are free to formulate educational policies, as I did, to address the challenges and create the societies that they envision for themselves. If you build primary schools and you put measures in place where people are enabled and sensitized to attend, and you build secondary schools where people deepen their knowledge and get ready for professional education at the tertiary level, and you make the right investments at the tertiary level with scholarships, tuition support, and all of that, then we know you're trying. Because it is investment in education and the policies you push consciously that will deprive these other tendencies from having the normal pool from which they recruit. For example, when I became governor in one state, 2012, on my inaugural day, the most important statement I remember, one of them, and I was very clear about what I was coming into government to do, a declaration of a state of emergency in education. So the number one challenge I want to address is education. Free, fair, and I followed it up. How? By law, I had to create the Educational Development Trust Fund. It's one of the few states in Nigeria that has it. Educational Development Trust Fund, by which everybody in the state pays a levy that goes to fund, create that fund. Because the funding of education, particularly when you make it comprehensive to include vocational, science, and technical education, is expensive. I say, yes, the government will do its part, but everybody in this state must also. And of all the people in the public service, I paid the highest as governor. The judiciary, everybody paid. And then I said, look, by that law, we are dedicating 5% of our IGR to fund the Education Development Trust Fund. I have to, by law, create that and ring-fence it in such a way that it will be sustained even after my tenure. And I can report to you to all, it is still working well. It's still running. And what did we do with that fund? You see, I knew that if a young man does not have access to education, primary level, and is in the village, our villages where the chairman and my brother Abanas has told you, it will take you hours on the ICs to get to them. So you can imagine the access to education in those hamlets and communities far-flung between islands, separated by water bodies. So I had to make it compulsory. Because any educational investment, as I used to say to people, and I will repeat that statement I've made over and over, the only investment you make that does not decay or depreciate with time, Chairman, is an investment in education. That's why it's good when people showcase roads they build, bridges they build. Fine. I did all of that. Build an airport in that swampy terrain, and several things, roads, bridges, flyovers, and so on. But I never lost sight of what will form the basis and the foundation for the economy, the knowledge-driven economy of the future. We must envision that future, because that future is already here with us. A knowledge-driven economy which only those who have the right knowledge and skills can participate in. Even now, with these computers and gadgets and so on, people of our generation, people slightly older, if they don't learn a few things, they become functional illiterates, isn't it? All our children don't know how to manipulate these things better than us. So imagine what will happen in the next 10, 15, 20 years, 50 years, when people don't have exposure to basic education. It's crisis, and it's already happening. So I decided to fight militancy, criminality in different ways. First, by pushing the frontiers of education. And I used to talk about it as democratization of education. That, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as any leader who means well should be concerned, access to education, health care, these are action, democratic rights of the people. My Lord Justice Bagge, our royal father, will agree with me that the makers of our Constitution, there's a part of it that they called directive principles and policies of state policy. If you go there, although the courts have said that they are not justiciable, by that they mean that you cannot sue any governor or president. But even that, I think, over time will change, because we political leaders are in office just to do that. With time, it will change. But I can understand why the justices feel it should not be a justiciable right, so that everybody will not be suing people to explain and so on and so forth. But the point should be made that we are in office. Everyone is elected in office, various offices, precisely because of that. Because if you are not there to expand the frontiers of education, to equip your people with the capacity to survive and participate and actualize their human potentials, then what are you there for? And no route takes you there except investing in education. But on the security bit, when I took over as governor, in the midst of militancy, cultism, criminality of all sorts, people were being slaughtered, 3, 4, 5 on the streets. And as a law enforcement man and a man of the law, I knew that I will enforce the laws. Everybody knew that. All criminals knew that the day I became governor, that there was going to be a change. Clear. No politicization of security. I was clear about it. And what we did on security, second to none, is there. And it came down. But I knew that fighting crime without fighting the causes of crime and criminality was not enough. It's good to fight crime and criminality, but it's better if you fight the causes of crime and criminality as well. And how do you do that? Number one route is investing in education and depriving those antisocial groups and tendencies from having a pool of young, impressionable people from which they can recruit. So when I took over and I was dealing every day with militant camps, kidnapping old people, including my own late mother. Oh yes. I was in the House of Reps, and my own mother was kidnapped. And I drove down here myself. Spent about a week going from street to street as a policeman, put on my hat of a police officer, trained detective. And we rounded all of them up and brought my mom from the forest. And so they know, even the criminals knew when I became governor. They know my antecedent. They know my zero tolerance policy on law and order. Nobody comes near law and order. Not even me or anybody. And it's clear. No interference with the judiciary, no interference with the police, and they must all do their job. And I will tell them, my job is to support you. Tell me what you need, but you must do your job. So everybody knew what I was going there for. But like I said, I also knew, and I would like all our leaders to know, getting late, but never too late. Better to be late than never. That the young man in the militant camps or the bandits in Kaduna or Zamfara or Sokoto, all those people that are doing what they are doing in Boko Haram in the northeast and all of that, all forms of criminality, is a manifestation of insufficient investment in education. All. And those people, a number of them, must be seen as, yes, they are culprits. But you see, if you look at the root causes carefully, they are actually victims of the state itself, state failure. Because it will take an insane young man to hold an AK-47 in the creeks of the Niger Delta. That was how I saw it, and I dealt with it. To stay and wait to plan to kidnap an 80-year-old, 90-year-old man or woman. I said, no, this is not normal. First of all, most of them are on drugs, and so are all these bandits and zealots wreaking havoc on this country and on their communities. They're first of all deprived of education and therefore not even enabled to understand the full extent and the consequences of what they do and the extent of their own potentials. Their own potentials. Victims of the state. Take, for example, this issue of out-of-school children, which is a major national menace. I spoke about it last month or so on the floor of the Senate, where I called for the Senate to inform the President and the Executive Branch and get all stakeholders in one room and with the governors and deal with it. In the northern part of this country, you have it in the manifesting as the Al-Majiri syndrome. But let me tell you, you are not alone in this. It's all over Nigeria. It's just that in other parts of the country, you are not seeing them doing the way the Al-Majiris do in the north. Others manifest it in other deadly forms. Cultists, armed robbers, and all kinds of petty criminals. If you stop on the hold-up in major cities, you see. So it's a major national catastrophe. I was telling a friend from the north, and I say, your situation is even better. At least most Al-Majiris are educated in Islamic education. There are others, school dropouts. They know no traditional education, nothing about customary education, nothing even about the English Orthodox education, nothing. And yet, the leadership, we believe that all is well. We are not aware that our societies are sitting on a keg of gunpowder. If you send your children to Oxford and Cambridge or Harvard, when they come back, are they not coming to see these ones? So this is why investing, my dear friends, the first challenge is for leaders to understand the role of education in transforming societies. And that if there's one factor, one sector that we need to revolutionize, as we try to do in our small way in Bayelsa, is education. And with that Education Development Trust Fund, look at what I did. I appointed competent people. Professor Ison was the one I put in charge, former minister, a man nobody will go and bend. I said, you have free hand to run this fund that we have created. Nobody will give you any orders, including me. And if anyone in my government tries to do so, let me know. You are to run this according to your knowledge because we trust you. And I now started to build primary schools all over. Build teachers' quarters, all the communities. Because I knew that when people are posted to rural areas, most of the teachers decline to go. I said, yes, they must go, we will insist on it, but I have a duty to create enabling environment. So we built, the headmasters had 2-bedroom flats. The headmasters had 2-bedroom flats. And then the other teachers had 1-bedroom flats. And I met with all the traditional rulers and said, it's your duty to take care of and support them. Any teacher who does not go to work, traditional rulers, it's your duty in the community to report to me. And I set up a template like that. And which is why traditional rulers too, my Lord, you people have a lot of work to do, and it's unfortunate that the constitutional system we have created has not recognized that. As governor, I did. Not only because of my royal background, but I know, for example, if you want to know what is going on in communities, you can't do so from the government houses. No. So I did a reform of the traditional system, where every traditional ruler in charge of a community, no matter how small, I gave them recognition and put them on salaries. And made a law that says no politicization. Nobody removes them. So when I see people removing governors and playing politics with traditional rulers, I'm appalled. They have a lot of work to do, security-wise, and monitoring things and letting us know. But in education, that's it. I now build secondary schools. Boarding schools for the first time, my friends. I said, no, we can't raise the quality of young people we want to raise this way with these schools. No. So we built model secondary schools. I think I built about 15 of them in every local government. Some local government, depending on the population, you have 2. And these ones had boarding facilities for the first time in my state. And we now met with the headmasters. Your duty every year is to recommend the best boy and the best girl for secondary education. They will be taken in a pool, write exam, and they will be put in the model schools. And that was the beginning of the revolution. In those model schools, all of them that were kept there were fed free 3 times a day. No state, I'm aware, has embarked on a revolutionary approach to education like that. None. 3 times a day, thousands of them. How did we get the funding? From the Educational Trust Fund that I established by law. So I tied it up to it. We provided school uniforms for them, computers, and so on for them. In one of them, the flagship, I called it the John National Academy and put it at the late Adakaboro's community to inspire young people. Before I left, the John National Academy had a population of 1,500 students. That one school alone. And all of them from parents I didn't know from Adam. Selected purely on merit. Where to do that. And then we now set up the Tertiary Loans Board. Tertiary Loans Board. I'm happy that President Tinubu, 10 years after what we did in Bayelsa, has started the Students' Loan Board, and I vigorously supported it in the National Assembly. And because of my passion, I chaired the technical committee of both chambers to work on the final document that was passed. And I'm happy that a few students are benefiting from that. Then we also built 2 universities. I'm talking of investing in education, my friends. 2 universities. The University of Africa, the Bayelsa Medical University, supporting the existing Niger Delta University, building the Bayelsa Polytechnic at Alibri. We also built a polytechnic, built a college of education, training of teachers. Built, because while we do this formal education, which is where you come in, and I will talk about it later, the skilled manpower development program, which is anchored on you, is equally important. No one is more important than the other. As a matter of fact, the polytechnics and institutions that are to turn out skilled manpower, if you ask me, may very well be more important. Because what is the purpose of education if it's not useful? So we built a school of tourism and hospitality development. The Minister of Tourism came to commission it for me. The John National Academy, I brought General Gowon to commission it, our father. So it was education, and set up by law the Board for Science and Technical Education. By law. For them to have 5% of the IGR and then pursue and develop science education. And sent over 4,000 scholarships. How can people be, you're a president or you're a governor for 8 years, 4 years, no scholarships? So where is the deliberate effort to build the leaders of tomorrow? To build the captains of industry? To build those who will transform our societies in different ways? So that's what I mean by, so it's comprehensive. Now, funding challenges, yes. The challenges are there, but if we do all of this, you see, like all of this we did, it deprived the young people, those who would have been militants and so on, in their communities. We are taking them out into the various modern schools, which my successor is also running from the fund. Because I've done the forward thinking and made the sacrifice. At labor opposed, I insisted. That's what I was doing was right. So not only must there be vision, there must as well be courage to execute the vision. So I set up those templates and fought. Just as I set up the insurance, the state insurance scheme, by law, with 5% funding from IGR. The same thing we did in education, we did also in healthcare. So you see, my dear friends, we get quite passionate when we talk about the failures of government, and by all of us, in investing or making the right investments. Mr. Chairman, you are from, with your experience, is it not a shame in this country that we have a school like Barewa College? All the schools that the colonial masters, even our colonialists, set up, and missions, not governments, the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, and colonial authorities. Government College Umuahia, Government College Ughelli, Government College, all these top, Queen's College, King's College. We, Nigerians, we have underfunded all of them. Is it not a shame? Even for a school like Barawa College, which has produced over 6 or 7 heads of states and presidents of this country. Biggest, one of the areas, my dear friends, we have let this country down, leaders of this country, different levels, have let this country down, this area of education. And if you fail a society by not investing in education, what are you looking for? You are breeding criminals. You are looking for crisis. You are looking for banditry and criminality and militancy. So he who sows the wind should be prepared to reap the whirlwind. That's part of what we are going through. Those who had those ideas, colonial masters and our leaders, founding fathers of this country, when they started this country, they were not stupid when they were building and maintaining these schools. The late Sadana knew what he was doing when he was supporting this one. Awolowo was doing the same. Zik and Okpara doing the same. And all over Nigeria. They were investing in the right things to create a stable, progressive, and productive society. Because it's either you build schools, my dear friends, or, you know what? You build prisons. Did you hear that? He who fails to build schools, he who fails to invest in education, should better be prepared to build what? Prisons. If you take the development template of any nation, you will see that at the end of everything, the entire development agenda will be anchored on education. Skills, vocational, they will look for it, fine-tune it, regulate it, fund it. People are pushing money. Recently, last week, when the American government under Donald Trump, and you know, he promised to make America great, and he has started making America very, very great. He threatened to cut off funding from Harvard, the world's #1 university. Did you people hear the amount involved? In one fell swoop, $2.something billion withdrawal. In other words, the American taxpayers and the American government, as wealthy as Harvard University is, they are funding it with over $2 billion, $3 billion every year. What are we talking in Nigeria and in Africa? Are still sleeping. Those young people on the streets and in the forests and in the creeks are victims of Nigeria's failure of leadership. I agree with you, they are committing crimes, but we are not addressing the root causes of crime and criminality. In them and among them, my dear friends, you have lawyers and scientists and professors, physicists, medical practitioners, the Dangotes among them. Undiscovered, unnoticed, and not enabled to actualize their potentials. All we do is government for the elites, by the elites, and no one cares. And The other day I spoke on the floor of the Senate again. And I know for the next 2 years they are tolerating me, and they will continue to tolerate me and hear these views. Because someone must tell these truths, isn't it? Yes. So even these headsmen carrying cattle, trekking from Sokoto to Bayelsa, do we know what we are doing to this psyche of these people? A nation that is consumed in sentiments and not having focus to address the real issues that matter. Simple. You ranch, you build ranches. In Bayelsa, when this was coming up, I said, no, we can't allow an armed person, whether you are headsman or not. Even you are from this state, you are armed, we arrest you. We build a ranch. You have a cattle, you have freedom. This is Nigeria, you can be anywhere. But you must comply with the laws. Take your cattle to that place. We will build a market there for you. We will build a clinic there for you, veterinary clinic. I will build, and I did all of that. Put water there. So you've got a right to do your business, but don't commit crime. But the way forward is to also build schools in those places. Quranic schools, because that's legitimate education. Arabic education is valuable education. If we equip them with Islamic, Arabic education, and also English education, they are better prepared even for life. No one should go at the expense of the other. But you need leadership and focus to do some of these things. Now, rounding up, because like I said, I didn't come for election. I came to engage with you and to share some perspectives about how we can begin to make the adjustments that will give us a more stable and a more productive Nigeria for all of us. So, back to where you function, which is technical education. Why did I set up a polytechnic? There were universities. But polytechnics are so important because it is at that level that you incubate, you fine-tune and incubate both the practice and the production of middle-level technical manpower. And also manpower that can begin to drive development and industrialization. If we don't have our polytechnics well-funded, well-equipped, well-enabled, our dream of technological advancement will always remain a mirage. It must be anchored on you, those of you practitioners in the colleges, in the polytechnics. And those who started this country, who started establishing this polytechnic, they knew what they were doing. They didn't just set up Kaduna Polytechnic for nothing, or Aushi Polytechnic, or this polytechnic or that polytechnic. There was a purpose. And the purpose was to produce technical manpower. Technical manpower. University education is highly academic. You can acquire technical skills there as well as academic, but the polytechnic education is more rugged, practice-oriented. It's based on skills development. And we have failed to invest. I'm not sure there's any polytechnic now that has modern workshops. And we are not surprised, therefore, that in this country, even if you want to build a house, I hope you all know that most of your builders are coming from Cotonou. Yes. Huh? Yes. Can you imagine? Neighboring small countries, so, with all due respect to them, We have this massive country with massive potentials. But we leave these gaps. And until we close the technological gap, you can't really say you have a functional education system. So I commend you all for what you're doing. And we all must work together. I've just shared some ideas with the chairman of this occasion, who himself is a very experienced, he's a veteran in this field. And I say, well, don't rest. I am not a lecturer, but I'm very passionate in the field of education, because I understand the linkages it has with security, development, and all of it. Working with Mr. President, Fompa, and all of you, I think that we should have a conversation as quickly as possible with the Honorable Minister of Education. And in this retreat, part of the resolutions of this meeting should be that the federal government should be called upon either to create and set up a special fund for the equipment of all the workshops to advance technological research and teaching in our polytechnics across the country. That program has to commence. It may not even be all at once, depending on the needs analysis that is done. If that specialized fund is not created, then we have to call on TED Fund. We have to call on TED Fund to create a sub-fund. I know that TED Fund is doing a lot, and which is why in the Senate, we have disagreed with the bit of the tax reform on the funding of TED Fund. We have agreed, all of us, to preserve the funding of TED Fund. Because without TED Fund, most of our universities and polytechnics would have actually closed shop. Is that not so? Yes. So we have done that. We have preserved, from the reports we have made, we have all agreed, both chambers, and I'm a ranking member of those committees also, to preserve the fund. But I think that interacting with you people, and as a ranking member of the Senate Committee on Education, Tertiary Education, I will have a conversation with our committee, and maybe even have interaction with your team, and also the rectors. We need to have a meeting with the Ministry of Education, and also with TED Fund, because we oversight TED Fund too, so that either the federal government creates specialized funding for polytechnic education, equipping, and then the motivation of the lecturers and staffing and all those issues, or we get TED Fund to create some money every year. But like I said, we know what TED Fund has been doing. But you see, what you call a school, a university, or a polytechnic is not a fine building. It's not enough, no. It's not enough. We have to talk about equipping of the workshops and the other facilities. And then the training and retraining of the lecturers, you people like a chairman of occasion. They are the veterans. They will organize it. Those who will teach people on welding, underwater welding, fabrication, carpentry. And look at the huge industry we are missing out in our own country. If you want to do any beautiful construction, it has to be welders from another place, painters from another country, electricians from another country, POP people to come and do your ceiling from another country. What kind of country have we become? What kind of country? And look at the skills that we can easily train these millions of young people to participate in our economy. But they are missing out. They are missing out. And the jobs are there. The work is there. But the skills have not been developed. So I think that's a conversation, like I said to the chairman, we should work on it. And I want to congratulate you all for putting yourself together and for keeping the flag of technological education flying, and for having this forum to have this interaction. Once again, I want to thank you all for that does not decay is investment in education. The only investment that has the capacity for transgenerational benefits is investment in education. You train one girl now, you have equipped her for life. She will marry a husband that she likes, she will be more independent. Her children will go to good schools, their own children will go. So any investment you make in educating one person is transgenerational, the benefit, and which is why all of us are here and where we are. I thank you for having me, and I wish you all.
Your Excellency.
Three key problems for any administrator: local government chairman, governor of a state, president of a country, and of Nigeria in particular. Three things. Investment in education, number one. Investment in security. Investment now in healthcare. When you've done these things, then you have created an environment for the economy to come up and for people to feel safe and be prosperous. As I said, the number one priority is education. Number two priority, education. Number three, education. And more investment in education. Because we must prepare for the economy that is knowledge-driven. The world is fast changing away from resource-based factors that drive economies. No, Japan, China, most of these countries don't have anything in terms of natural resources. What they have is, even the whole of Europe, what do they have? Is the brain. Capacity, knowledge, experience, expertise. And if we don't do that, even smaller countries will take over. And that's why I said, for example, on technical and skills development, which is what we talked about here now. You are building houses, whatever construction you are doing. Apart from the big companies from Europe, Germans, Italians, and so on. Imagine. Now, if you are even building, your welders, your people doing plastering, bricklayers, all those people come from neighboring countries, Benin Republic, from Cameroon. That's what is going on. So, every government that is serious about development must invest in education. It's good to build roads, it's good to build houses, it's good to build all these, but those are physical things which at the end of the day amounts to brick and mortar, subject to decay and renovation. Investing in human skills and knowledge and capacity of these young people, that's what would catapult our country and their lives and their societies and their communities. And also make us safer and more stable. Because the more people you have uneducated, without skills and without jobs, without this, and government can't employ everybody. So we must invest in skills. We must invest in skills. And we have the manpower, and we can do it. You know, so that's what we talked about there. Huh?
Our technical education have been put back to like a second field to our university education.
Yes.
What are you urging the federal government to do to prioritize our technical education?
What I've said is arising from this meeting and the communique And I will also be part of that facilitation of a meeting with the Minister, Honorable Minister of Education. And I believe that a proposal has to be made for special funding of our polytechnics and technical and vocational schools across the country, at least the ones that are federal government owned, while we interface with the state governments to do the same. I'm happy that the programs are instituted in my state, most of them backed up by law, Teachers Training Academy, Tertiary Education Loans Board, the Education Development Trust Fund, are going on. Current administration is continuing with that. My successor is moving ahead with that. And they're even now building technical schools, which is the right thing to do. Okay, so every government must prioritize education, investment in human skills. As I said, if a government does not build schools and invest in education, that government should be prepared to build prisons, because the criminals will be multitudes, millions. That's what is happening to us. And building universities, yes, but skills development. And these jobs are there in the economy. So many people are building houses. They are welders, they are vulcanizers, there are all kinds of skills that are needed, carpenters. Whereas somebody with a degree is looking for a job, somebody who has a certificate and well-trained doesn't spend time to get a job to do. The jobs are there. So we will, if we succeed in that, take a lot of young people, put them into jobs to grow and service the economy. And that's the case that we will not get tired of making. As I said, I will also be part of as a member of the Senate Committee on Tertiary Education, a ranking member of that committee, and with some influence, I will utilize it to ensure that this communique and a subsequent interaction takes place with the Honorable Minister, and I will also draw attention of the TED Fund people to it. Okay? TED Fund is already doing well, as I said, but we all have to now, at this stage, think of how we can create funding for some of these polytechnics to really be properly equipped and take off. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And why are there